my channel and happy Wednesday. I've been doing a lot of really fun crochet tutorials, but today we're not doing a crochet tutorial. Don't worry, there will be more of those coming soon, but today I'm going to be making possibly the nerdiest DIY I have ever done, and I am so excited about it. So some of you may know that I'm in classes right now for speech language pathology, and I'm loving my classes. I'm taking prep classes to join a master's program. We were learning about the cranial nerves in neuroanatomy, and I happened to be on Instagram scrolling on an SLP page, and I saw that someone made a clock where the cranial nerves were all the numbers on the clock, and I literally thought that it was the cutest, most nerdy thing ever, and I immediately knew that I had to make one. So I went to Michael's and I picked up a wooden round from Michael's. You can find these in the craft section, and I lucked out and found one that had a pre-drilled hole. If it didn't have the pre-drilled hole, I don't actually own a drill, so I was just gonna like chisel it out or something, I don't know. But if you do own a drill, you can basically make this out of whatever you want. If you don't, try to find one with a pre-drilled hole, and this was around $11. And then I also picked up this clock movement kit, and I believe it was around $8. So the whole clock's gonna kind of be $20, a little pricey for, you know, a DIY, but I knew I needed this cranial nerve clock. So I know it might not pertain to everyone's interests. You could totally put anything you want on this clock. You don't have to put the cranial nerves. It's kind of just DIY your own clock, and all you need are the supplies from Michael's and paint and some imagination of what you want the clock to look like. So I was on Pinterest looking at some inspiration, and I found these really cute images of clocks that were kind of color blocked, and I thought that was really pretty. So I went ahead and I painted my wooden round white as like a base coat, and we're gonna go back in with some masking tape and some paint, and we're gonna create kind of our little color block situation. And then after that dries, we're gonna go back in and we're gonna paint on the cranial nerve. So I found this one clock where there were images of what the cranial nerves go to, and I thought that was cool. And then I found this one that had the names of the cranial nerves. I thought this would be a really fun way to DIY something that connects to what I'm learning in school, and also kind of a helpful way for me to memorize the cranial nerves, because I did memorize them all for an exam. But we all know that sometimes when you memorize things for an exam, you don't actually remember it. And I really want to remember this information. So we're just gonna get right into DIYing our cranial nerve clock. So the color palette that I'm working with today is just lavenders and purples and just cool tones. I absolutely love purple, it's my favorite color, and I've been super into lavender recently. I think it's a really versatile color palette, and it works for spring, summer, fall, and winter. So it could totally match all your decor all year round. So my technique for painting this clock is to use masking tape, and I'm going to tape across the sections and just use that to create a clean line. For this specific section, I want this part to be white, so I made sure to lay the tape so that the outside line here would be where I want the line to change to purple, not inside here, because obviously when you paint, underneath the tape is going to come up white. I was inspired by this minimalist wall clock that I found on Pinterest that's originally from Etsy, and I decided to use it as a base for the color blocking idea for my clock. So as you can see here, I've laid down masking tape in the general area of everything. So this is going to be one color, this is going to stay white, this is going to be another color, and this is going to be a fourth color. So I'm just going to mix up some lavenders up on a paper plate and get the 3 shades that I want. And then I will begin by painting this section first. I'm gonna let that dry, then I'll peel off the tape and move on to the other sections. Once you've painted one section, what you're gonna do is take off a piece of masking tape, wait for this to dry. I waited till it doesn't look like it's wet anymore, and then I'm taking my masking tape and just kind of sticking it on my pants a couple times just to kind of make it a little bit less sticky. And then what I'm gonna do is line it up perfectly with this line, and I'm not gonna press it down very hard. I'm just gonna press it down right at the edge of the line because I don't want to take off any of the paint. And then around the curve, you just gotta make sure to press it in with the contour of the curve if your wooden round has a curve like this. Okay, and then for this section, I'm gonna add another piece of tape here, and then we're gonna paint this gray. And then before before the paint dries, you're just gonna wanna peel off the tape. And don't worry if the lines aren't perfect, because you can go back in with white paint later and fix it. So it looks really cute. We're just gonna have to go back in and fix right here, and then a little bit of paint there. Now I'm just gonna let this dry for about an hour before we add on our Roman numerals for the time. Okay, I'm finally ready to start drawing on the cranial nerve Roman numerals and the little pictures slash words. I haven't really decided what I want to do yet. I have my two diagrams up here, one with the names and one with the little pictures. And I'm basically just going to begin by sketching the Roman numerals in the right position. And I'm going to use a pencil to lightly, very lightly sketch it on to make sure it's all in the right position. Say hi to the video.
Hello. Wait, Amy, I don't know how to say hi to the video.
Just say
Hi to the video. Did you start it?
Yeah, it's been started this whole time.
So I got out the smallest paintbrush that I had and got some black acrylic paint and started painting over the faint pencil lines that I had drawn.
So I started off by doing the four main ones in kind of like corners so that I could make sure everything was perfectly symmetrical. So now I just need to make sure that the two in between each one of these are centered. Just finished painting on all the Roman numerals and it looks so cute. It's not perfect. As you can see, 4 and 8 aren't quite as symmetrical as I would have liked, but I think it looks pretty darn cute. So I'm gonna let these dry and I'm gonna figure out how I'm going to write on the names of the cranial nerves. We're gonna let this dry for a few minutes and then we're gonna come back and we're going to paint on the smaller words of the names of the cranial nerves. So I pulled out my notes from my lecture because I don't trust the internet and I know that my notes are gonna be solid because my professor is amazing. Check on the spellings and the names of everything just to make sure it's all perfect. And I went ahead and wrote in with pencil very lightly underneath all of the Roman numerals the names of the cranial nerves. And then I'm going back in with this pen, which is my favorite pen from Target. It comes in a pack of 12 and I use them for literally everything. But this is one of my older ones because it will kind of tear up the nib to use it on wood. So just use a pen that you're not obsessed with for this project. And then I'm going back and I'm outlining the words and I'm making it a lot neater than the pencil. And so what you want to do is make sure you erase the pencil before you put on the pen if you didn't like it, because it's way harder to erase once the pen is on and you could smear the pen. So we're just going to continue in this fashion.
And I also decided not to add in any pictures or symbols for what they correlate to, just because I thought this looked a little bit neater and I wasn't perfectly confident in my ability to come up with cute symbols for all of them that would also look aesthetically pleasing. But I think the idea for symbols is adorable and I might revisit this later and do another clock or add to this one or something, but for now we're just sticking with the names of the cranial nerves.
Even though I checked a couple times, I still spelled one wrong, so if that happens, just go ahead and paint over it and then wait for it to dry and try again. So I couldn't make a video about the cranial nerves and not kind of do a quick overview for you guys of what they are, why am I learning about them for speech pathology, and what even are we making this clock for. Okay, so there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves and they comprise the motor and sensory nuclei that innervate your head and neck regions. What does that even mean? So it's nerves that come down from your brain into the rest of your body that allow you to move and to feel things. So I only really know a lot about the 7 that directly correlate to speech and hearing, so I'm just going to tell you what I know about those. So cranial nerve 5 is called the trigeminal nerve, and it's called trigeminal because there are 3 parts of it: ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular. It has sensory and motor function, which means that it's involved in feeling things, mediating pain, touch, temperature to your scalp, etc. And motor, which means that it innervates your muscles of mastication, which means that it's the reason that you can chew. Cranial nerve 7 is the facial nerve, and it's a mixed nerve that carries unilateral and bilateral motor, projections from your cortex. So what does that mean? There are sensory and motor parts to it. So the sensory part transmits taste sensation from the anterior 2/3 part of your tongue and general sensation to the back of your ear. And for motor, it innervates your muscles of facial expression, which is why it's called the facial nerve. So cranial nerve 7 is the reason that you can make any facial expression. Then we have cranial nerve 8, the vestibulocochlear. It is important for your balance and your hearing sensation. And I'm sure you all know the word cochlea, which is in the word vestibulocochlear, and it's a sensory nerve, which means that it only helps you feel things. It doesn't help you move, but it helps you maintain your balance and your head orientation. So I'm not entirely sure if this is supposed to be pronounced glossopharyngeal or glossopharyngeal, but I'm gonna go with what the internet told me, which is glossopharyngeal. So this nerve, as the name indicates, is to your glottis and your pharynx, which are both part of your vocal tract, which is the reason that you can talk. So this is also a mixed nerve with both motor and sensory functions. So the sensory part sends sensation from your middle ear, your pharynx, and taste to the posterior 1/3 of your tongue, and the motor innervates your stylopharyngeus muscle, which helps elevate your pharynx while talking and swallowing and contributes to your gag reflex. Then you have cranial nerve 10, which is called the vagus nerve, and this is also called the bully nerve, and is probably the most well-known cranial nerve in voice circles. It goes through your head, neck, thorax, and abdomen, so it's pretty big, and it's also a mixed nerve, so it has sensory and motor components. So for sensory, it mediates parasympathetics to your heart, lung, and digestive tract. It regulates nausea, oxygen intake, and lung inflation, and it provides sensory information to your pharynx, larynx, thorax, abdomen, and taste from your epiglottis and pharynx. Overall sensation in the pharynx, larynx, and esophagus. So it does a lot for your larynx, pharynx, and esophagus area. For the motor, it innervates your pharyngeal and laryngeal muscles, which allows you to swallow and phonate or talk. It allows your vocal folds to close. It also helps with your gag reflex, esophageal peristalsis, which means when you get a piece of food stuck in your esophagus and it hurts and you can feel your esophagus kind of squeezing it down to your stomach. That's esophageal peristalsis. It also helps with your VP closure, which is the velopharyngeal port, which is basically how you get a nasal sound and talking in my nose. So it helps you do that. Crazy, right? Okay, we got two more that I'm gonna talk about. Cranial nerve 11, which is called your spinal accessory. This cranial nerve is motor and it gives motion to your neck and shoulder muscles. And then we have cranial nerve 12, hypoglossal, which is also a motor nerve that allows your tongue to move. Okay, I hope that wasn't boring. I hope you thought it was really cool to learn about the cranial nerves and what they do, at least the 7 that I'm learning about. I think it's really fun, and it's so crazy to think, even while I'm talking right now, I'm using so many of the different cranial nerves to move and talk just to explain all these for this video. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this cranial nerve clock. I had a really fun time making it, and I think it's gonna look so cute in my apartment, so I'm glad you came along and joined me. I have a lot of really fun ideas for upcoming videos, so if you wanna come back for any more DIY videos, please subscribe. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you next Wednesday for another video. Bye guys. Why are you not focusing on me? I will be back. I will be, why can't I speak? Can I help you?
At first I was afraid, I was petrified. I never thought that I could live without you. But I'm sad.